You are looking good. You who are 3 steps above average. Hello, I am Kendall Bryan Hunter. I am author of this book, Consider My Servant Job. It's a commentary on Job in the Old Testament. We're all going through a lot. We're all experiencing a lot. Just chaos everywhere. And if you're looking for answers, and if not answers, at least comfort, give my book. Give it a look. Hopefully you'll find what you're looking for. At least you'll find something that'll help you, if not help a friend of yours during these really difficult days. So, breaking news. This the Eyes of Faith podcast. Breaking news. Someone ticked off President Trump, and he posted a mean thing about them on Truth Social. Next item. This is the lead story. Anti-Trump obsessive-compulsive behavior. Now, you've seen this, the same thing that I've seen. You have friends, coworkers, family members just reposting anti-Trump messages on their social media feeds. But it gets a little puzzling because 90 to 100% of what they're posting is anti-Trump messaging. And this doesn't feel right. You understand having objections to Trump, and I certainly have objections to Trump, even though I voted for him. Actually, back in 2016, I voted for Ted Cruz and Carly Fiorina during the primaries, so I have voted against Trump. So I understand the objections. Because the objections were enough to vote against him. But when you're going on social media, it gets a little creepy because all they're just doing is on their reels or what have you, just Trump says, posting someone else's comments about Trump's. And it's just, okay, every time I'm talking to you, I'm not saying about your life or what's going on with you. It's just anti-Trump, anti-Trump, anti-Trump. And this does not feel healthy. I had to call out a relative of mine because she was posting some things on my Facebook. I said, look, I love you. I care about you. I'm having your violence ideation is a concern to me. And she hasn't unfriended me, but she's stopped posting. Charlie Kirk, Trump, the ear. So some of the stuff it's just strange behavior, just constantly reposting stuff. Not original content. You're scouring the doom scrolling, that word, doom scrolling stuff, and then reposting through your social media feed. So it's not healthy. So let me begin. I'm not a psychologist. My Bachelor of Arts in history. I did a minor in political science, which is why I'm doing this. I'm wearing the hat I'm wearing. I did take a psychology class in high school and took that my junior year, my senior year as a teaching assistant with the teacher. I liked it so much. So history isn't scientific. It's psychology-ish. Sort of that outer orbit. You have to think about how people's psychology works. Also, when I turned 50 years old, I read an encyclopedia. So that's about the credentials I have. I have a friend of mine. She has a bachelor's, master's, PhD in psychology. She's a counselor, competent person. But one time she just got really crazy. This has to do with Brent Kavanaugh's nomination. And just things got out of hand. I had to block her. Here's something to think about. You have a friend who has a PhD in psychology. Does she know how to ways to manipulate you and screw around with your brain that you may not be aware of or unable to detect? So, getting on, I like reading things, and I like try to read a lot of stuff. What was this? I heard Dennis Prager. Oh, I didn't write the date in this. Dennis Prager talked about Sigmund Freud and the death instinct. So I thought that kind of tickled my ear, so I searched on the internet and got this book, of course used, called Sigmund Freud, Beyond the Pleasure Principle. The standard editions. This is the official translation, one that's authorized by his estate or what have you, so it's industry standard. And it was interesting reading because it doesn't quite talk about the death instinct. You know, think about the assassination attempts. Who's assassinating who? Lincoln, Garfield, McKinley, Trump, Reagan. It doesn't quite talk about the death instinct, abortion, euthanasia. But it does talk about something in chapter 3 about repetitive behavior. The idea that it comes as Freud was watching a little kid play a kid's game. And you think about kids' games, stuff like peekaboo, it's repetitive behavior. You sit there and we'd think, but Freud, whatever you think of him, he was a bit of a sharp person. He thought outside the box, and he was revolutionary. He went through some phases. Once she becomes famous, you become a bore because just everyone agrees with your opinions. But talk about repetitive behavior, repetitive compulsive behavior, reliving past trauma. Remember Napoleon? I guess it was Napoleon Dynamite's his uncle, who in high school had that football game. Constantly reliving silly stuff over and over again, that head talk, and we all do it. But you ever thought about it, what it means? So Freud talks about this. I'm going to quote some from him. Remember, this is an educated, old-school German person getting translated into English, so bear with the translation. Said Freud, chapter 3 of the pleasure Beyond the Pleasure Principle. Let me wet my whistle. This is illegal. This is a legal beverage, and it's non-alcoholic. Freud said, he's obliged to repeat the repressed material as a contemporary experience. Repeating the repressed material as a contemporary experience instead of, as a physician would prefer to see, remembering as something belonging to the past. So you have this traumatic experience of the past. You keep reliving it as it's a present experience. It's saying, okay, I just need to let go of it in the past. Fights, conversations you've had. There's a French term. I can't remember it. Let's see if I can find it. But about reliving the past. You know how you get in an argument and in the middle of the night you wake up and you remember how you should have responded to it. Here's another quote from Freud. But we come now to a new and remarkable fact, namely that the compulsion to repeat also recalls from the past experiences which include no possibility of pleasure, and which can never, even long ago, having brought satisfaction even to instinctual impulses which have been since repressed. Now you think about this. For example, you repeat something. You have to eat, and sometimes we overeat a bit. I'm trying to do something. Well, I'll put that a little bit later. Like I said, I was trying to find the French term for the. I was looking up. Here I can put a little bit quicker. But what happens is that they're doing this repetitive behavior, but they're just not deriving any pleasure from it. It's an agony. Think about, there it is, a French term, esprit d'escalier. Esprit d'escalier. It's a witticism that comes to the mind after the opportunity to make it as past. The spirit of the staircase is what the French term means, where you think of something later. It's like, oh, I should have said that. But it's with reliving the trauma. But going back to this other quote, repeat experiences which know possibility of pleasure and which can never happen. So reliving fights, this compulsive repetitive behavior, which. Okay, what's going on? It's just negative. People just constantly complaining about Trump's like, you're venting. There's catharsis there. But every day you're reliving the trauma. You got your head in a wrong space. And you just keep thinking about him over and over again. That's really what Freud's talking about, at least what I'm talking about, or how I'm interpreting Freud in this case. And here's another quote. This is from chapter 3 of the book. The perpetual recurrence of the same, and this is in quotes, perpetual recurrence of the same, reliving trauma about Trump, occurrence of the same thing causes us no astonishment when it relates to active behavior on the part of the person concerned, when we can discern in him an essential character trait, which always remains the same, which is compelled to find expression in the repetition of the same experience. We're much more impressed by cases where the subject appears to have a passive experience over which he has no influence, but in which he meets with a repetition of the same fatality. It's like I said, that's German, but the idea that we're just repeating things and mentally reliving stuff, and this compulsion to repeat, compulsive to repost negative things about Trump. But it is to be noted that only in rare instances can we observe the pure effects of the compulsion to repeat, unsupported by other motives. In the case of children's play, we have already laid stress on the other ways in which the emergence of the compulsion may be interpreted. The compulsion to repeat and instinctual satisfaction, which is immediately pleasurable, seem to converge here into an intimate partnership. And like I said, it's the child's game of peekaboo, and there's sort of like the constant surprise of, as an adult, it gets boring. Same thing with the game of tic-tac-toe. When you're 5 years old, you can play tic-tac-toe, but at my age, it's like, you remember the movie War Games. And just think about this, when you're observing your friends constantly repeating, reposting stuff, just scouring the internet and posting negative things about Trump. That is not healthy behavior. I've avoided using the term Trump derangement syndrome, but I'm talking about that. I'm just approaching it from a different way, and it's a little bit more clinical rather than a sarcasm. Like I said, read this and disagree with me in the comments. Disagree better, please, but please disagree with it. But this thing that you're observing is reposting negative things about Trump over and over again. That seems to fit the bill of compulsion to repeat. And I'm not sure what's going on in the head of the people just doing it. It's just not healthy reliving the trauma. Like I said, I had to call it a friend of mine. It's like, okay, this is crossing over into violence ideation. And here I am, was a 15-minute drive away from the place where Charlie Kirk was killed. There's also another aspect to it, and Freud talks about this when he wrote a paper on narcissism. And he also talked about something called thaumaturgy of words and magical thinking. So like I said, the Greeks in history, but I'm a human being and I have free speech. I'm just calling it as I see it. But the magical thinking, living this fairy tale, okay, if you keep posting enough negative things about Trump, he'll go away. But let's say, okay, let me make this prediction. And I want to be wrong about this. I pray that I'm wrong about this. I want to be made a laughingstock because of this prediction. Once Trump gets out of office, he's going to get arrested and he's going to get killed just like Epstein. But back to Freud. It's like they're trying to cast a spell over and over again. Okay, I wave the wand. I keep scouring and posting negative things about Trump. People will finally see the light. But there's a negative, it's just doom scrolling, what it does to your emotions and reposting negative things. It just doesn't go anywhere and it's unhealthy. It's like you're stuck in a ditch. Picture someone in a SUV and they've skidded off the road and they're in a mud ditch. They keep going up and vroom, 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 backing up, revving up, going up there, and they keep sliding back. And so they keep turning it. And nothing happens. So eventually the kind of thing that happens to them is they run out of gas. And so they finally start changing it, not changing their strategy. They're just stuck saying, okay, let's do the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. You've heard that's I think the first time I heard it was in a debate with Clinton Bush back 1992. But it's taken a life of its own. I don't think Einstein ever said it, but it's an interesting principle. It's something that Freud talks about here, like I said, this compulsion to repeat. It's not healthy. It gives magical thinking. You're not going to make Trump go away. What's the way out? How do you get out of this ditch? You're in a ditch. You keep backing up, skidding, and sliding back. What's the way you're out? There's only one way out, and that's Jesus Christ. Forgiveness, forgiving Donald Trump, praying to have charity for Donald Trump. As John Taylor taught, Jesus Christ becomes the master of the situation because of the atonement, and that's the way out. Because you either keep on doom scrolling, which leads to the violence ideation, or you turn to Jesus Christ and forgiveness. And that's my message, is turning to Christ and forgiveness. Okay, news blip. So that's, like I said, it's just a mental health concern I'm raising. So what's the number? 988 for the mental health hotline. Call it if you're reposting stuff about Trump. There's people who care about you on 988. So news blips. The Reverend Jackson, that was Rush Limbaugh doing an impersonation of William F. Buckley. I actually saw this early on. Jesse Jackson was on William F. Buckley's show, and see if you could find the clip of it. It's interesting to watch. But the Reverend Jackson passed on. Now, Trump, who never has a good word for none of his enemies, he was really complimentary. This is what he said. The Reverend Jesse Jackson is dead at 84. I knew him well, long before becoming president. He was a good man with lots of personality, grit, and street smarts. He is very gregarious, someone who truly loved people. Despite the fact that I am falsely and consistently called a racist by the scoundrels and lunatics on the radical left, Democrats all, it was my pleasure to help Jesse along the way. I don't think Jesse Jackson's success is 100% dependent upon Donald Trump, but he was certainly a facilitator. I provided off space for him in his Rainbow Coalition, or Monochrome Coalition with Limbaugh fans, for years in the Trump building at 40 Wall Street. Responding to his request help in getting criminal justice reform passed and signed when no other president would even try, single-handedly pushed and passed long-term funding for historically black colleges and universities, HBCUs, which Jesse also loved, but also which other presidents would not do. Responded to Jesse's support of Opportunity Zones, single most successful economic deployment package yet approved for black business, men and women, and much more. Jesse was a force of nature, few others before him. He had much to do with the election without acknowledgement or credit of Barack Hussein Obama, a man whom Jesse could not stand. That's interesting. You remember Colin Powell and Oprah Winfrey supported Obama, but politics makes strange bedfellows, and the arithmetic of politics, 2 and 2 does not equal 4. Continued with Trump, he loved his family greatly, and to them I send my deepest sympathies and condolences. Jesse will be missed. President Donald J. Trump. So that's interesting. As he points out, he gets called a racist, but clearly you saw that picture with him and with Jesse Jackson, and then Don King, and I think it's one with Muhammad Ali. And you know how this works is, they'll love you until you become a Republican. You out yourself as a Republican, and then all the insults start upchucking. You know, the magical spell of it, hurling insults at people. Next, the Pope? Nope. The Pope, Donald Trump's had this board of peace, which is there's a pun on the word board, B-O-A-R-D or B-O-R-E-D, the board of peace, but you got to call it something. The Pope declined Trump's invitation, and I'm honestly puzzled by this. The papacy is a great force for peace, but Pope Leo XIV declined to attend Trump's board of peace. Now, admittedly, Trump's doing an end run around the United Nations. He's in control. He's chairman of the board, like Frank Sinatra. But he's sending out an olive branch, and the Pope turned it down. That's not good negotiating. That's not a good life model. The Pope, if I was the Pope, I would have accepted it. Just saying, okay, look, you're for peace, I'm for peace. Let's make a deal in this one area. I still think you're a scuzzbag. You keep away from my children. But in this area, I'll work with you. It's the same strategy when you have members of the church working with Protestants and Catholics on anti-pornography or homelessness issues. Okay, we will never come to terms on the Trinity or the infallibility of the Bible. But yeah, we're working in this one area. And bad move for the Pope. I'm not Catholic. So I think the Pope should have reconsidered this. Trump's a monster. Pope doesn't want to get tainted by this, but blessed are the peacemakers. And if you have any issues with Trump or hypocrisy with Trump being a peacemaker, you remember that time that Barack Obama won a Nobel Peace Prize while he was fighting the global war on terror? Did that really happen, or is that a chatbot hallucination? This is sort of breaking news. SCOTUS says no to Trump's tariffs. The Hill. The justices ruled 6-3 against Trump, with Chief Justice John Roberts, Justice Neil Gorsuch, and Amy Coney Barrett, all conservatives, joining up with the High Court's liberal flank to cast aside the bulk of the tariffs. Said Trump, those members of the Supreme Court who voted against our very acceptable and proper method of terror. It's just funny reading these things out loud because he's using language to manipulate things. He's up talking and down talking. Study neurolinguistic programming, and it's just funny because Trump's a master of it. But once you see what he's doing, it's like watching a 5-year-old kid do a card trick. The members of the Supreme Court who voted against our very acceptable and proper method of tariff should be ashamed of themselves. Their decision was ridiculous, but now the adjustment process begins, and we will do everything possible to take in even more money than we were taking in before! Exclamation mark. And so just this morning they talked about is it 10%? I saw a blip about 15% global tariff on everything. Remember, tariffs are a bargaining chip. It's a way for us to get a better deal because we're getting taken to the cleaners. We're getting a lose-win deal, to use verbiage from Stephen R. Covey. He's renegotiating these trade deals that are more friendly to the United States. Now, some people want to have a battered spouse syndrome approach to trade, where let them take care of us and we'll be good Christians as they kick us in the crotch over and over again. I don't think that's a good interpretation of Christianity. Admittedly, some people see things that way. I don't. You do have to protect your self-interest. It's the airplane oxygen mask principle. When a mother's holding a baby and the oxygen mask comes down, it takes a lot of training because the mother's instinct is to put it on the baby first and put her second. No, the correct procedure is put it on mom first, the baby second. The baby's going to live. It's only going to take a few seconds, but you need to put you have to take care of yourself without destroying yourself. Take care of yourself without destroying yourself in the process. Here we are. The Epstein Files. Point 1. If you're shocked and appalled by the Epstein Files, then you're really naive. Point 2. Trump's name X number of times in the Epstein Files. We already had this conversation as a citizenry about this discussion about sexual deviancies among the presidency. When the Senate debated the articles of impeachment of President Clinton, the same issue about sexual deviancies of a president, the vote was cast in favor of the feminists. The feminists thought it was okay for Bill Clinton to have his deviancies and lechery. And so that just settled the discussion for me. So we're fighting a battle that's 25 years old. At least some people's heads, they're fighting a battle. Zombies in your head, to quote the Cranberries. About the anthropophagy involved with the Epstein Files, I have no comment. That could be disinformation, although I wouldn't put stuff past elites. So what happens when you get a lot of money? You get people like Mick Jagger, Sting, Paul McCartney. They have fame and fortune, and Ringo Starr, they're fairly stable. Michael Jackson, that fame did weird things to him. Fame, talent, and money. So, me, no comment. Let's just wait for more information to come out. So to end on a happy news, the Olympics, those Norway. No way, Norway. You're cleaning up, Norway. So congratulations to you. My ancestry is actually Danish, but it all kind of was part of the same structure. I think you had, was it the three crowns? You had Denmark, Sweden, and Norway. Was that it? The three Scandinavian countries coming together, and I know Finland was always a puppet of Russia, but Alyssa Liu from Oakland, where I was born, got a gold, so congratulations to her. Setting a good example. If she got a silver, we'd still respect her, and she did her best. Not surprising news segment. Someone ticked off President Trump, and he posted mean things about him on his social media account. That's a funny joke. It's once you go there with a mindset that you do something, if you agree with Trump, he's just going to lavish praise on you. You cross him, he's going to insult you. So if Trump insults you, this is how you respond. And I wish the vice president, the former vice president, Mike Pence, would have done this. He said, okay, President Trump and I, as you can see, President Trump and I cannot come to terms and come to an agreement, come to a meeting of minds on this issue. However, I'm confident that at some other point in the future, we can see things eye to eye and work a deal. That is, you turn the other cheek. That whole Christianity thing, who isn't a Christian, or what's Christianity? You approach things that way. Said, I'm sorry we can't come to an agreement, but at some point in the future, we work from, I wish President Trump the best with his family. If you'd respond that way, that'd change everything. If Nancy Pelosi, you remember ripping the thing up, if Nancy Pelosi had responded that way, things would have gone a lot differently. And that's just basic Christianity. Philosophy point. If you got $1 million, what would you do with it? Something to think about that, because I'm going to get to that a little bit later. I'm what's called persuading you. Next segment, America 250. I offer apology. I like reading books. I'm a very voracious book reader, so I give that long list of stuff to read. Okay, one thing. Let's scale things back. If that list I gave you is a little bit too long, get a copy of this. This is from Hillsdale College and Declaration of Independence of the Constitution. Just read the Declaration of Independence. It'll take you probably about 5 minutes to read it. And if you haven't read it in a while, if you haven't read it at all, it's very eye-opening. So America 250, that's the bare minimum, the bare basic. So let's give the Life some Pointers segment. A little wet my whistle again. And you notice I held the pinky out. This is a classy podcast. We are reformed. I don't belch or use curse words. Life some pointers. Okay, I did my taxes last week. Surprised I still haven't got them in yet. Apparently Utah, they have to wait until March for some reason. So it's another week of me losing interest and losing unrealized gain on the stock market. But what's your game plan with your refund? Do you have a game plan? Oh, you see how I asked that question? If you got $1 million, what would you do with it? I'm asking the same question. When you get your refund, what's your game plan with it? What's your written budget? You see all these people with these kind of notebooks walking around. I think part of the reason is like when you're on your phone, you can't stop taking notes or look at your calendar. So when you're on your phone, you write stuff with a pen and paper and then transfer it. Like when you're scheduling a doctor appointment, your calendar's on your phone, or sometimes some people have two cell phones and or one's like their MP3 player or what have you. But when you get the refund, what's the game plan? As always, get on a budget, get out of debt, and don't do drugs. Build up your emergency fund. You retire your debt, pay it off. Don't pay down. Do it 100% clean sweep. Think of this analogy. Okay, debt is like owning a boat. So you have a boat, the boat's sailing, and it springs a leak. You either turn around, fix the boat so it doesn't leak, or you can go to the store, buy a bunch of pumps and buckets. So the boat's still leaking, but let's just buy pumps and buckets to pump the water out and keep things at an equilibrium. Okay, does that help you understand? Does that give you a little bit of clarity on things? So yeah, get rid of the debt, and then after that you build wealth. Start out safe with certificates of deposit. Maybe do your patriotic duty and buy some double savings bonds. Start with the certificates of deposit, which are easy. They're guaranteed. Your fixed rate of return, that's common sense if you're a really nervous person. With stock, if I were to start again, knowing what I know now, I didn't put a lot more into Standard & Poor's 500 index funds and Russell 1000 index funds, and always stick with not individual stocks. As fun it is to own these stocks and these companies, stick with the index funds, and that'd be the way I go. And then have some fun. You want to buy a share of McDonald's or Tesla or some other company that you believe in. It's always fun to have that. Plus, you get voting rights. Yeah, if you hate Star Wars and Star Trek, buy stock in Disney and then stock in Paramount Skydance. You get a vote. Those sons of gun out because you have a standing. Half an hour. We are at the time for the e-devotional. Now, what is it? Today's the 21st, so 11 days ago, the prophet, president of our church, Dallin H. Oaks, spoke at BYU. So he spoke at BYU, and next Sunday there was nary a peep about it. We had I think it was 4 sacrament meeting speakers, 2 of the missionaries and the high counselor. Nothing about it. Sunday school lesson wasn't even mentioned. Fortunately, I'm here for you if your ward is kind of neglecting things. In the book of Acts, it talks about the disciples had fellowship and doctrine, and if your ward's just a kind of a social center, I'm here for you. So this is what President Oak said. First, strengthen our faith in him, meaning Christ. Second, increase our humility. Third, seek help from others. Fourth, be patient. So get that down to one sentence so it's easy to remember. Faith, humility, help, and patience. And what you can do is see this is an index card. You can't read my handwriting. My fingers are double jointed on the tips, and so it's hard for me to hold pens. See, my thumb's double jointed, and so I'm just a bad writer. That birth defect I have. But here I am. I put this on this index card and carry it around with me to refresh me. Pray over it 3 times a day. Think about it. Ask my Father, okay, where am I lacking in faith? Where am I lacking in humility? Am I actually turning to help from other people? Hopefully I can be a helpful resource to you. Like I said, no one has all the answers except God. I don't have the answers. I may make mistakes in reasoning, but maybe something I could say can help you out. Patience. What do you do when you're waiting for the tax return to come? That's the current thing with patience. So put it on an index card. Think about it. Oh, you can use the index card as a bookmark. There's that a little bit better. Use it as a bookmark. Well, you're still reading print books, so you can buy a copy of my book, and then you put the 4 points of Dallin chokes in here, and use it as a bookmark, so you get the best of both words. Well, here we got 31 minutes and 39 seconds, and that's the passing scene. Scene with the eyes of faith. Thank you.